discovery. Courage makes discovery possible. A very warm welcome to our distinguished guest, respected teachers, and all the students present here today. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this session on the topic From Vivek to Stanford, a journey of curiosity and courage. We are honored to have with us our distinguished guest for today's session, Miss Harnoor Kaur. Can we please have a huge round of applause? Ms. Harnoor Kaur is an incoming PhD student in political economics at Stanford University. Recently, she worked in economics research at the Yale University and the University of Chicago on projects related to international development, gender, energy, and the environment. She holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Hindu College, University of Delhi, and a master's degree in economics from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Her talk will reflect on how a career path often takes shape through curiosity, experimentation, and a willingness to change direction. Drawing on her own journey from school leadership and international exchanges to economics, field research, Yale, and now a PhD at Stanford, on behalf of the school, we extend our gratitude towards you, Ms. Harnoor Kaur, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We truly look forward to learning from your insights and experiences. Can we please have another huge round of applause?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back. I'm an alumni from this institution, from the batch of 2018, so it feels surreal to be back here after 8 years. Um, I have, as Manna described, I have done research in different parts of the world. I've been working in India and Africa, so I'm happy to talk to you about my journey, how I failed and failed a lot and got to where I am, and how I inspire you to fail and find your own path and make your own mistakes. And I welcome questions at any time. I think that's more useful than me standing here for half an hour and yapping. So please feel free to ask any questions at any time. So I wanted a show of hands for how many of you have an idea of what you exactly want to do when you grow up or in undergrad. Okay, quite a few people. Who has like a few possible ideas about what they could be doing? Okay, that's a lot of people. Good job, school. Who has absolutely no idea right now? Okay. So I would like to say that this last group is actually larger and will keep on going larger as you go towards 12th grade. And who feels as though everybody else around you has figured it out? And okay, a fair number of you. Trust me, they haven't, and people are going to switch around what they want to do. So let me talk a little bit about my time at Vivek and how I would inspire you to use this time that you have at this institution to best prepare yourself for your future. Because I think it's tremendous to be in an institution like this, which can help you a lot in your future. So these are some photos of my time here. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I was the Nalanda House captain, which is the only thing Mukul sir remembered about me. I was the Round Square president. We did a lot of fundraisers, service projects, got to travel a lot with school, do service projects, etc. Then I went on exchange to the Athenian School in California, which was one of my most formative experiences. Thank you to Bubbles ma'am, who I don't see here, for pushing me to go in 12th grade despite all of the mounting pressures of taking the board exams and doing whatnot. So this was one of the most formative experiences of my time here at Vivek. Not in a sense, it was because it taught me a new way to learn, which we hadn't really been exposed to. So, what it gave me was the curiosity to actually learn why we are learning a certain thing and why it's important for us to have this knowledge, which I think often escapes us, and we learn things from the textbook just for the sake of learning. So, what I discovered was a new way of thinking through ideas, applying what we learn in school to different projects. And you don't need to go on a fancy exchange for this. You can do this by talking to your teachers, by reading books, by implementing ideas. Everyone around you is super helpful. I encourage you to reach out to people, to reach out to alumni. They're always happy to help. And to just speak to as many people as possible and to see what subject interests you and what you want to do, and then see what career path that can lead you to. One of the other things that this taught me was that you don't really know what different lives and career paths would look like until you experience them. And this was a chance where I got to see people from different realms of life who had not grown up in the same way that I had, and who did not hold the same assumptions and the same priors that we have growing up here and seeing a very limited scope of things. So it was really nice to see that. But again, I encourage you, with AI coming in, for instance, you should learn that, you should take that to be more curious and to not seek out answers, but to seek out questions that you're interested in, and how to actually help that with your curiosity and seeing where that can take you and what projects it can build. I also did a lot of service projects in school and went on a lot of conferences, which again exposed me to a very different variety of people. We did a project where we worked with government school students in Mani Majra and taught them lessons on human anatomy, taught them how to sew their own underwear so that they had access to clean menstrual products and hygienic menstrual products. And that, again, for instance, helped me discover that not everybody comes from the same background, not everybody has the same experiences. And unless you go out and seek conversations with these people and try to understand what they're going through, you don't really understand what all opportunities are there for you to avail, and what things might interest you, what topics you care about, and what ideas you might want to help shape in your future. So, what school gave me really was a curiosity to ask questions and the freedom to discover things that I might be interested in, which I hate to tell you this, but not a lot of people have that privilege to experience this, which is something you would probably learn in college. It gave me the confidence to be in unfamiliar places. I think a lot of times when you do so many extracurriculars in school, a lot of people around you would be doing it for checks on their CV or to get into college. But I think what is more important here is that you learn how to organize people, you learn the confidence to deal with people, you learn how to problem solve in different spaces, and you have the opportunity to take ownership where the pressure is very low, and you have an abundant space to just fail and do whatever you want to do, while developing all these skills, which will take you a long way. It also gave me a lot of exposure to lives that are very different from my own, through Round Square, through service projects, through also just talking to people and job shadowing and different experiences that you get at this school. You should talk to your fellow people, your juniors, your seniors, your teachers, as well as participate in whatever extracurriculars that give you this experience. The next phase that I want to talk about, since you all would be either applying to colleges or going off to colleges, is following the obvious path. So for my undergrad, I decided to do economics. This was, again, I realized that I am interested in understanding why people come from different backgrounds, why people have different constraints, why everybody's lives do not look the same, and why institutions can't fix that. And that interested me in economics. So I decided to pursue that in my undergrad, and I went to the University of Delhi for that. It was strange because I came into an environment where there were a lot of bright, brilliant people around me, all of who wanted to become a management consultant. So I entered college thinking this is the only thing that I'm going to set my life agenda to, is finding an internship in a consulting place, becoming a consultant, making money for the rest of my life, living in Delhi or Bombay doing a job. And that's what everybody around me told me that I should be doing. So, excuse the photo, but I basically worked really hard to get my first internship in the summer of my first year, which was at a boutique consulting firm. And this was the agenda of all of my first year. I joined the finance and investment cell because that's what everybody told me I should be doing. I wrote emails to people. I managed to get an internship, and I absolutely hated it. It was the worst thing that I ever did, in that the work was interesting. A lot of my peers were really happy doing that work. But I just sat there looking at the clock every day, waiting for it to strike 5 and then to leave from there. So this experience was a little unnerving because it basically led me to a place where this is all I've wanted to do for the last 1 year, and this is all I've set as the goal of my life for the last 1 year. And my identity is almost attached to being a consultant, but I hate it and I don't know what to do at all. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of elimination, which helped me to get to where I am now. So I think oftentimes we all feel like this would have been a failure, in that I did something and I didn't like it and I don't want to do it for the rest of my life. So it was all a waste because I'm never going to do something similar. Um, But it's important to know that you must try out these things in order to narrow the field and narrow the path to where you want to go. So, for instance, if I hadn't done a consulting internship at that point, I might have sat for placements, or I might have gotten a job in consulting later on. And I might have actually been stuck in that role for 2 years and hated it, instead of 2 months hating it and knowing that this is not what I want to do. So I think one thing that I want you to take back from this is that you should always reach out to people and try to get their experience on what it's like to work in a certain place and what the job feels like, and trust your own instinct as to how that experience matters for you and how it made you feel, rather than just listening to what people around you are saying is the right path for you. And is the prestigious path, is what people are doing, is what will give you security and guarantee. All of those things are important, but life is long and you need to do this every day for the rest of your life. And you don't want to be stuck in a place where you are doing it only for the prestige and only for the money, and it doesn't bring you happiness to go to work every day. And I think the most important thing is, once you fail, I encourage you to reflect on that and to journal if you journal, to talk to people, to share your experiences with people, to talk to your mentors about this and see what can be the next step that you can do. And then to try again on a different path that you think might align a little better with your future. I also want to talk about the role of luck in getting to where you want to be. So oftentimes we say that people are just lucky and something landed in their lap, or I'm unlucky and this didn't happen to me, whereas so and so was lucky and then they got to this place. Um, I feel like an important story that I wanted to share was, after this experience, I was quite dejected. I didn't know what to do. I also didn't know what kind of internship I would want and how to get that. So what I resorted to doing was writing more than 100 emails to people, just reaching out to people saying, this is what I do. I'm studying economics. I'm interested in learning more about research, learning more about paths that economists can take after graduation. Would you be willing to get on a phone call and just guide me through your journey or what you're doing? And I did this with like people who were working in banking. I did this with people who were working at the World Bank and the United Nations and in the policy space. I did this with people who were still consultants at development organizations. I did this with academic researchers. You would be surprised to know that 3 people out of 100 replied to me, and I got 97 no replies. And out of those 3 people, they spoke to me. 2 of them were alumni from Vivek. So it shows how well the alumni network can go and how far you should like definitely tap into those networks. And people are very happy to pay it forward and to talk about their lives. And there was only one yes that I got from an external woman who was not associated with Vivek, who was happy to talk to me about her role in academic research and what she was doing. And she gave me the opportunity to intern with her in the winter of my second year. So a few things, like now that you're in high school, I would recommend, I assume most of you have email IDs, if not all of you. I would recommend reaching out to alumni, reaching out to people, to sending very thoughtful emails to basically understand what they're doing, what their life looks like, how they got to that path. And I think one benefit of this is, for instance, when I was in school, I loved math. And when I was deciding what to do for undergrad, I was like, okay, I really like math. Maybe I should be a math major. Without knowing anything about what life in math would look like after undergrad. And then I spoke to people about that and realized that, well, doing this day in and day out doesn't really sound like I would be living my happiest life. So maybe I shouldn't put all of my eggs in the basket of doing a math degree. And I think the most important thing to recognize is that people will respond. You will get lucky. You just need to keep trying. And you just need to get lucky once. You don't need for 100 people to reply, because that would be incredibly hard for you to keep a tab of and to speak to. So you just need a few people to reach out and to reply. And for luck to work your way, you need to create a large surface area so that luck can find you. So this opportunity that I did get was from the Farmers Forum of India, which again, coming from Chandigarh, I had been exposed to farmers. I had some sense of speaking to some people when I was young, but not really. I had never worked in a developing setting. We all come from very cushy backgrounds, and we've seen a life of privilege. So it was a path that I had never really experienced or even thought of something that I would be interested in. And I went into this thinking, okay, this is the only thing I got, and these people are willing to take a chance on me. So let me try it out for 3 months. I have nothing to lose. And it ended up changing the trajectory of my life. So, what the project was about, and let me give you a little sense of what academic research looks like, is you identify a problem that you want to understand, and this problem typically doesn't have an answer to it. So, for us here, this problem was, well, the government does farm loan waivers and gives waivers to these small farmers every year. Are these effective? What effects do they have on small farmers versus large farmers? Who actually benefits from this? This is something that nobody knew. So we basically wanted to measure the effectiveness of such policy. And basically, what this involves in academic research is you pin down a question that you're passionate about, and then you spend a year of your life trying to figure out, okay, what is the data that we need to analyze this kind of a question? How can we get to an answer for this question? And who do we need to speak to understand the setting? Because these people understand their lives far better than we ever will. So you go into the field, you talk to these people, you understand what problems they're having, you figure out ways to ask them questions, to understand the differences in their lives before and after they got the farm loan waivers. And then you have your training from economics that gives you the tools and the methods to actually analyze those data and make statements like, the farm loan waivers caused X and X percent of difference to these small farmers. And for instance, what really inspired me about this was that we would go into the depth of this one question that we really cared about, and which was a recurring policy. And what we found out was that these farm loan waivers actually ended up disproportionately benefiting the large farmers and harming the small farmers who basically did not get loans in the next cycle because the government refused to pay the loans earlier, and then it was a whole snowball effect of them just not getting any loans in the later cycles. So it was one experience that taught me that oftentimes a lot of what we read in the news or a lot of what we hear from people is hearsay, and there's not scientific inquiry without that. But the actual causal reasons and what a policy's effect is might be really different from what we anticipate it to be. And this then drove me towards thinking that, okay, this is something that seems really interesting. It seems to, oops. I remember doing that. Yeah, so it was one of those experiences which taught me that everything is not how it meets the eye, and I can create impact by actually studying what these policies mean and what happens when you actually assess these policies with the government, and how you can design better policies to influence the lives of people that are truly at a disadvantage and change their lives trajectory. So this was the internship that basically inspired me that academic research is something that I could maybe consider doing for the rest of my life. So this led me to the other major path that economists often choose, is working for the World Bank or working for the United Nations. And in my third year of undergrad, I ended up doing a one-year-long internship with a consultant who worked for the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, and the United Nations. So this gave me a peek into the policy sphere of things, working with international governments, international aid agencies, sending money to the poorest parts of the country and the world, and seeing where this money needs to be spent, what infrastructure needs to be built, what is required to have these projects take force in reality, what these loans look like, and how to basically work on start proposing a project from start to finish and to carrying it out with these development organizations. And again, like, this is really important work. These institutions shape the lives of many, many people. Um, but through this internship, I realized that it wasn't the kind of work that was fulfilling to me, just because it was a breadth of very different things that we would get to do. But what I really enjoyed about my previous internship was picking one topic and going into the depth of it and answering questions that had never been answered. So throughout my college, these were the three major experiences that I had. And two out of those basically helped because they helped me rule out what I didn't want to do and narrow the field, as compared to giving me clarity on what I do want to do. And so, having realized that, okay, I don't know if I want to do academic research, but it's something that I enjoyed doing, and I enjoyed the lives of people who were doing it. When they could start work at whatever time, they would go out and speak to people in field. You had a mix of this practical aspect of things as well as bringing in your knowledge of doing economics, and it was a very good harmony of things that I was interested in, which made me think that maybe this is a path that I should experience a little further and see if I can build a career out of this. So this is not working. Oh, perfect. So next, I want to talk to you about this experience. Basically led me to thinking that maybe I should do a master's in economics, and I should try to understand what economics research looks like on a more global scale, and what people who are doing academic research, what their lives look like on a daily basis. And for this, I enrolled into the master's at the London School of Economics, which was an entire different story in itself. So when I went there, I was surrounded by people who knew the subject much better than I ever did, and they were used to thinking more about economics like an economist, which I feel like I had done a lot of different things in undergrad, but what I hadn't learned to do was think like an economist and think from that frame of mind. So it was very intimidating going into an atmosphere with such challenging academics, as well as an environment where people were competitive, eyeing for the same 10 jobs in London that you can get, and wanting to do the same things, and magically expecting that a degree from the LSE would lead you to these paths. But it's not, again, a magical world. It'll give you experiences, it'll give you exposure, but the onus lies on yourself to do these things. So I spoke to a lot of professors. I got in touch with people who were doing academic research to understand what kind of work that, what kind of projects they're working on, and what fields they're interested in, and what drew them to these fields, which gave me an idea of how I should read more and how I should learn what topics interest me, and try to recognize that by reflecting on that a little more. Um, so again, I got to learn economics a bit more rigorously, and to actually see how that might be valuable for doing research and answering questions in India that I really care about. and develop new questions at the same time. Because whenever I would come back home, I would have a variety of conversations with farmers, for instance, or with people from schools, and realize that, okay, this is something that I hadn't noticed before. And I wonder why XYZ is happening when I haven't really noticed it happen before, or it hasn't seemed strange to me. And I feel like economics gave me the tools to actually assess those questions in a rigorous manner. Unfortunately, the set plan that I had once decided that I would do this, I would do an internship in my first year of the summer, and then I would sit for placements, and everything would be in a perfect line as I have planned out and decided would go on swimmingly. And that, of course, changed because plans rarely do come to fruition as you imagine them to. So I had an unexpected health challenge in my first year at the LSE, and I had to take a gap year and come back to India for that. And again, I don't want to romanticize difficulties at all. Some difficulties are just difficulties, and they shouldn't happen to anyone. But this difficulty gave me an opportunity to actually see that this delay that I have in my studies by a year is not a derailment. And I can use that to build my skills more and to experience more things so that I go back to the LSE with a more coherent idea of the kind of scholar I want to become. So, what I ended up doing in my gap year was basically working in Delhi for a year with the University of Chicago research team that sits in Delhi. And what this made me do was go to rural parts of India to do field research and to look at electrifying villages in India or to creating pollution markets in India, which is something I had never thought was economics, or like climate change had never seemed like an economics problem to solve to me. So it was really cool to see how you can bring in economics into absolutely anything that you care about and go and speak to people and try to bring in those tools to make a difference. And what I also got to do through this experience was go to the University of Chicago, visit that place, talk to professors, talk to professionals who were already there, as well as work closely with people from the LSE who continued to be mentors and support me throughout this time. And I think this was, again, one of the most shaping times in my life so far, in that I returned to LSE having a much better idea of the kind of scholar I wanted to be, the kinds of issues I was interested in pursuing, and what I wanted to do right after LSE, which is a clarity that I had never had in such a form. And in fact, this experience and this clarity led me to becoming one of the first people in my cohort at the LSE to get a predoctoral research fellowship at Yale. And then I just want to give like a little bit of sense about what I have been doing for the last 2 years and what this path actually looks like. So I ended up doing a predoctoral fellowship at Yale University, which is basically an apprenticeship in research. So all of these seemingly disjoint experiences that I had during my undergrad and during my master's, some of which seem to have been failures at that time and to not be relevant to my current work, seem to all now fit in one straight line in perfect harmony, because these different experiences taught me much more about the landscape of India and how to deal with people, how to talk to people, how to talk to government employees. And I ended up using all of that in my work at Yale. So essentially, what I ended up doing was we had identified questions and populations that we cared about changing lives of. And what I ended up doing in my first month of working at Yale was going to Patna in Bihar and speaking to rural communities and trying to understand why women don't work and how to get women in the workforce in these areas. So a lot of the 1 month that I spent in Patna revolved around going into people's houses and talking to them about what social norms construe them and has shaped their lives, and why these women are hesitant to enter into the labor force when we're giving them work and trying to uplift them out of severe poverty. And then we would basically make questions and make surveys, go out and test these surveys with people, collect data, analyze this data, and present our findings to the government in order to come up with policies that the government can then run to shape the lives of these people much better. And basically, this experience helped me to prepare for a PhD, which I'm now about to start. So again, this is just to say that a lot of things in the past that seemed like they wouldn't matter to me or were a waste of my time actually seem to be incredibly important, because I would have spent so much longer trying these different paths out and seeing if I liked them had I not experienced them in my undergrad, by taking these opportunities and reaching out to people and seeing if that's the kind of life that I can imagine living. So again, like for instance, some of the topics that I ended up choosing during my research fellowship was how social norms impact who works and who doesn't work in villages, and who is basically gate-kept from working in these different villages, and how to bring women into the workforce, how we can give women financial and digital literacy and get them to be digitally inclusive in the economy, and how climate change is impacting pollution markets, and how pollution markets can help change the local pollution in areas when different laws are still in the path of being enacted and being debated in the parliament. And I think one of the most important things that this made me realize is that there's so much value in talking to people. And this is not just true for my field, but for every field. Is that the more you talk to people, the more you reach out to people, the wider network that you make, it's always going to come back to help you in one way or another. One of the most obvious ways is that it shows you the different paths that are available to you. And you don't have to pick a path right away. Like, you all are young people, you have your whole lives ahead of you. What is important at this step is to realize that there are 10 different paths that you can take out of any single path that you do take in your 12th grade. And the earlier that you can start reaching out to people and exploring what these paths are, the better off you will be in the future. For instance, I landed up with economics as a fluke because I went on exchange and I took an economics class, and I was like, okay, this seems really cool, and maybe this is what I should try to do in my undergrad. But I do wonder, what if I had spoken to different people at this time and known what different paths would have been available to me? Would I have chosen a different path? Presumably, yes, from how my life has shaped out afterwards. So again, like tying this back to school, you're at a chance where you get to take ownership in small ways by participating in different extracurricular activities, doing all of the competitions that you want to do, doing art and crafts, debating, doing MUNs, public speaking, and all of these skills will take you a long, long way. And most people don't get to do this in school. So don't do it just as check marks on your resume, but do it so that you get used to taking ownership and taking responsibility and to being proactive in whatever you choose to do after this. And all of this experience together, right from how school changed me into the person that I am, and then letting that change me as I went along my time at Hindu College as well as LSE, I decided to enroll for PhDs. And now my profile wasn't the typical PhD candidate's profile that people have. And I think that served me well because I had a very rich variety of experiences, which made me very clear on the kind of scholar that I want to become. And I think a lot of the times during the way I kept thinking that I've wasted time doing these experiences, or I should have stuck with one narrow path of doing exactly what it takes to get in. But this has actually made me already start out by doing my own research in a very clear way. And I know exactly what I want to do in my PhD, and I can hit this ground running, which not a lot of people around me can do. And I'm now headed to Stanford University to do a PhD in political economics. And to give you an idea of what that is, it basically mixes politics with economics, and you get to understand why power shapes different lives of different people and different institutions, and how different groups get this power and have the power to create these policies and to influence the lives of a certain set of people, and how this percolates down to the masses and changes the systems in the society that we live in. And again, like, I cannot be more thankful to my teachers from school to have pushed me when I was in school, to go on different conferences, to participate in different things at school, to always push myself beyond the academics, because academics is something that you will pick up regardless, even in school and beyond. But you don't get teachers who invest in you personally and push you to achieve what is rightfully yours. And I think Vivek is a special place that does exactly that, and you should lean into that part of what the school gives you and try to do that. And one thing that I do want to point out is that we all come from such privilege that we have absolutely no excuse to not try our very best and to give up before we even try. And we have so many people standing right next to us, and so many peers and so many seniors who would be willing to help out, that you should just take any opportunity you can to fail, and that's going to teach you so much more than one right opportunity will. So again, this is all to say that my path looked very rocky, and often when people talk about their experiences, it feels like they always knew what they were doing. And this kind of goes back to my first question, in that how many of you think you know what you want to do? And the idea is not to stay fixated to a particular identity that you want to build on yourself, or to tie yourself to, okay, I want to get into this institution or my life is over, or I want to do this, otherwise there's nothing I can do. You have so many opportunities to try and test what you want to do. You should just be curious and open to seeking as many experiences and getting exposed to as many things as you can. And the biggest way in which you can do that is by talking to people and by reading as widely as you can. So again, like, what I hope you remember from this talk is that you should always explore before you declare that this is what I want to do. So school is, again, an excellent way to do that. There are lots of people around you who would have siblings, for instance, who are on a particular career path. I really encourage you to reach out to alumni. Like, I'm always happy to reach out to people and to talk more about or connect with friends who are doing a certain thing. And that often will give you a much better idea of, okay, this is what the life day to day would look like, and this is what my work day to day would look like, and this is the kind of work that I enjoy doing, beyond the mere recognition of, okay, I'm a lawyer or I'm an economist, and that brings joy to me. But you should always strive to create a life where you look forward to waking up each day and going to work. And again, do not mistake prestige with fit. So a lot of times people will give you this advice as you, especially as you move towards 12th grade and you start applying to colleges and you start picking out, okay, this is what I want to do. And everyone will tell you that there are these 5 things that you should do, and these are the only respectable paths. And everyone wants to be a doctor or a lawyer or a banker, and everything else is silly. But nothing is silly. I think what matters at the end of the day is that this is your life and you have to live with it for the rest of your life. So you should absolutely not let anyone derail you from exploring what's out there and what other paths exist. And I can't stress on this heavily enough. And the other thing is that, again, luck will find you and you have to believe in that. But at the same time, you have to create opportunities for luck to find you. And the way in which I did this was reaching out to multiple people, especially tapping into networks I had from school and college later on, because alumni are often very, very, very happy to help you and pay it forward. And they can help you find internships or refer you to people who can help you find internships. And that often teaches you so much more than doing an online course would, or even college ever would. The other thing to remember is that you will encounter failures and you will fail at different points of life, but it's important to reflect on these failures and to see this as information that you know about yourself. Because if you don't have this information about yourself, there's always a chance in the future that you will make bigger mistakes and you will have to pay a bigger price for these mistakes. So it's always important to invest in yourself and to find out more information about yourself. The other thing to remember is that plans do matter. It's always good to plan ahead, to work towards having a life that you really want to have, with the caveat that no plan comes without detriment and no plan will work out exactly the way you want it to. I mean, if it does, good for you, but plans often fail and unforeseen circumstances come in the way, and it's always good to be able to adapt and to learn from that and to move forward and to not let it be a derailment. again, hard work matters, but a lot of what matters is smart work and making your own luck. So you have to, at the end of the day, you can work as hard as you can, but you shouldn't shy away from taking the easy path out whenever that's available. You're not going to get a trophy for taking the hard path. So wherever you have opportunities to lean into networks that you have, especially from school and beyond, you should absolutely do that without any shame or guilt. And again, like we're in an age of AI, and I would really, really encourage you to lean into that. And there's no future of any job without AI. But what I would want you to do is not look at it as a way to get answers, but to look at it as a way to develop questions and to explore what you're passionate about and what you can do with those passions, and to learn how to help it make you more curious. So there's one little experiment that I want you all to reflect on is, what is one thing that you're curious about and you don't have the answer to? And what is one thing that you can try in the next 30 days? Is there someone you can reach out to for a simple conversation, or someone you can interview? Is there a book that you've always wanted to read on a subject that you know nothing about? Is there someone you can talk to at school that could tell you about a certain path? I encourage you to strongly take the time and to do that, because you have all the time in the world right now to experiment and explore as much as you want. And oftentimes people will ask you, what do you want to become when you grow up? Or what do you want to become when you leave school? And I think it's completely all right to not have that figured out, and to lean into not having that figured out, and to have what you want to be able to figure out in these next few years is what interests you, and what are the things that you would be interested in learning more about and to explore more about, and to then go those different paths and to seek out those different conversations with people. So you should always be willing to learn as much as you can about yourself and get as much information as you can about yourself. So again, all of this is to say that you are very young. You have your whole lives ahead of you. You don't need to have everything figured out. It's great if you do, and those plans will change. But what's more important is to harness that feeling of curiosity within yourself, and to be open to exploring more opportunities and to become an explorer in your own way. Thank you, and I'm always happy to have questions right now, later on, and for you all to reach out if I can be of any help. Happy to also answer any questions in case. Yeah. Can we get a mic?
Included. So he wants to know about how you can have digital inclusion into the path that they are choosing.
Mhm. So, in terms of the path that you are choosing, I think it's important to basically see what you are learning and to personalize that to your own self, and to see, okay, if there are different paths that you're interested in, how can you use AI to develop things that you're interested in, for instance, or projects that you would want to work on, and to work on those with them. And then you can use those very projects to reach out to people and say, hey, I've thought of this idea, and this is something that I'm interested in. Would you be willing to give this a read and to share your thoughts with me? Or is this something that is useful in the stream that you're working in, which will give you a better idea of the kind of work they're doing, as well as give them an idea of the kind of work you're interested in. How we use digital inclusion is, again, by brainstorming with people that this is what we're looking at when we talk to people, and how do these different narratives fit in with these theories that we have about um, people in different parts of the world and experiences that we have been seeing earlier. So to harmonize all of that, we do the thinking, and then we basically, instead of talking to other people, which we do later on, we first try to clear out what it means for ourselves by using these digital technologies to clear out in our own head what this means to us before we take this information to other partners and brainstorm with them. Mhm.
Excuse me, ma'am. How did you know what you wanted to do in your undergrad?
So it was by fluke. I took an economics course when I was at Athenian, and they basically asked us to go out and do our own projects in something that we were interested in. And we ended up trying to see whether, like, what happens when people get evicted and how we can make sense of that from statistics, in that what is the share of men and women that get evicted, and are some races more likely to get evicted than others, and how we can use stats to see if that's the result of a policy or just by fluke. And I think that was one of the experiences where I was like, this seems relevant to real life and this seems very cool. So maybe I should try that out. But all of this is to say, this was the only thing that I was exposed to. So I didn't know what other things could be. The only other thing I was considering was math. And then I spoke to someone and realized that I don't want to be doing theoretical math day in and day out. So this is just something that I don't see myself doing. And so I think when you are deciding what you want to do in undergrad, first think of what subjects interest you in school and what topics interest you, and then try to reach out to, say, seniors who have done similar things on LinkedIn and have a conversation with them as to what their life looks like. And then see, is this kind of work something that excites me?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I wanted to ask if I was potentially interested in research right now, is
Mhm.
that something I can explore at this age, and what opportunities you would recommend to somebody in school or maybe just starting college if they wanted to?
So I would recommend reaching out to people. So there are a lot of think tanks in Delhi. I'm happy to connect you to some people, and they're very happy to hire interns, for instance. So you could work on them for the summer. And how it often starts is because when you're in high school, you don't really have the tools that are needed to do proper research, that they might put you on something as, okay, read these 10 papers and tell us what you find in these and what is the state of the literature there, which gives you an idea already into the sort of questions that they're answering and the kinds of methods that they're using to answer those questions. And then as you go into undergrad and get those tools, you get into a more in-depth research experience. So I would recommend reaching out to people in that space, and I'm happy to connect you to a lot of think tanks in Delhi. And just reach out, say that you're a high school student potentially exploring this path and would love to have a conversation and to see if there's any work that you can be useful in. I think the best idea is to not go in fixated that you want to do hardcore research from day one and to take in whatever they're willing to give you, because for them also it's an investment in you to train you and to teach you about the kind of work they're doing. So just be open to whatever kind of work they do, and slowly you'll start getting the kind of work you want.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mhm.
After your gap year in London School of Economics, you could have easily left and just come back to India and stay there. But what kept you going to study and do further field work?
So I think one of the things was I needed to finish my master's, so I needed to go back the year after. But I think what really excited me was that a lot of the research that you see in academic places often happens from the US or the UK, fortunately or unfortunately. It's those places that have the money to do this work. So even though I knew that I wanted to work on topics in India that I have grown up seeing around me and topics that I care about, the way to do that and the tools that I want to solve those issues come from studying elsewhere and to like for instance doing a PhD from a renowned university so that you have governments that can take you credibly enough to be able to implement the research that you want to do on ground. So I think that was my main path, in that I have identified what I want to do and what I would like to do for the rest of my life, and now I want to figure out a path that gets me to that, and that path happened to be doing a PhD from the US.
Good morning, ma'am. I'd love to know your opinion on what are certain things we can do as high schoolers to build our expertise in economics.
So I would suggest reading a little more. I'm happy to pass on a book of recommendations, a recommendation list of books. And I think that gives you a sense into what kinds of questions economics has answered in the past and what kinds of questions economics can answer. And it gets you into a bent of mind to thinking about things from that lens, which is something that you don't really get exposed to in school. So I think that's a really good way into just slowly easing into that field. And then the other thing I would say is try in your summers writing something for newspapers, for instance, or going out to people, try to see what constraints they're facing, how you can then bring in economics from the things you've learned into them, and reach out to economists, reach out to people working in policy spaces, see if there's a policy piece that they're writing that you can help do some research for. And a lot of times they're very happy to have you on, and that can give you a slow, it'll also be helpful for when you're applying to colleges if you've done all of that, and that'll help you already get a head start into what it's like working as an economist.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, did you apply for colleges abroad to pursue your undergrad, and why did you choose DU? Like,
So I did not apply to colleges abroad during my undergrad. I knew I wanted to stay within India and wanted to explore. Like I think growing up, I never had an inclination to live abroad. It only came after I discovered what I wanted to do, in that I want to live abroad for this. But I think my ideal college was always Delhi University. My parents are from there, and I had seen siblings of friends go to DU, and the kind of exposure it gives you to different people, to living by yourself, and to being proactive in different societies, to having very competitive, driven people around you. And the kind of diversity that you see in a place like DU is unmatched anywhere, even in India. And I think that teaches you so much more about your role in the world and what you might want to be doing than any other experience could. So I had ended up applying to private colleges within India as well as DU. And then when DU worked out, I knew that that's where I wanted to go and pick up these different set of skills that a lot of colleges might not be able to teach you. So this is again something that Vivek taught me, in that these extracurriculars matter so much more than you think they do in the long run. And academics is something that you can work on even on your own, because academics is not the strongest part of DU, but what it gives you is a different sort of a personality, and being proactive, going to protests, for instance, or like being part of the education system at large that's happening in DU, and being proactive in the life there. And I think that's something that has been very valuable growing up. So I think a lot of colleges abroad also give you that, but it's just like colleges in India will also give you that. It's just a matter of what
thank
you
you.
want to prioritize.
Good morning, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, like, was there a difference in exposure and opportunity at your experience at an Indian college and a college abroad? Like, was there a difference between what you want to study and your experience there?
So I think the biggest difference between Delhi University and LSC, and I think this could also be different if you compare like private colleges in India to private colleges abroad, is that in DU you had a wide variety of people around you and these societies that you would participate in and competitions you would go for, but you would need to put yourself out there and be very proactive into chasing these opportunities because it's a very large institution and everybody is kind of wants to be in the same societies or do the same kind of work. So you have to be very proactive in finding these experiences and finding people to talk to. Now, for instance, a lot of people from my cohort didn't know that academic research was even an option or a PhD is even an option, even after the whole undergrad, because that was just something that we weren't exposed to. And not a lot of our professors were doing research, and we didn't have a lot of research readings in our course. So I think that piece of exposure was missing, and how I got that exposure was by proactively reaching out to people. So I think the difference is that you would need to make much more of an effort yourself, which again doesn't mean that it's impossible to do or it's impossible to get the same set of experiences. You just have to be a bit more proactive at it. Whereas I think at the LSE, a lot of those things and that information was given to you from the start. So it made things a bit easier and they would handhold you a little bit more. But again, at the end of the day, to get those opportunities, you would still have to race the other people for it and put yourself out there. It's just that the information about that was given to you earlier. But again, that's if you are proactive about it from the very beginning, I think you can bridge most of that gap by yourself.
Thank you.
Mhm. If that's all, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It is now my privilege to request our Vice Principal, Mr. Mukul Sir, to please come up on stage to present our guest with a token of appreciation. I request the V Careers Department to please step up on stage for a group photograph. Okay.